My friends, I want you to know something today. What you endured was not in vain. That relationship, that trial, that season of struggle was not by accident. God, in His infinite wisdom, placed you there for a reason. And yes, you were successful. There are moments in life when we find ourselves in situations that seem unbearable, tangled in relationships that drain our spirit, leaving us questioning, why did God allow this? But my friend, let me tell you, God does not place His children in battles without purpose. He does not allow suffering without meaning. Every hardship, every painful encounter, and every season of difficulty serves a purpose in His divine plan. When you encountered the narcissist in your life, it was not by accident. God in His infinite wisdom allowed you to step into that situation for reasons beyond what the human mind can immediately understand. Perhaps you were meant to be a beacon of truth in their life. Perhaps God was using you to expose darkness. Or maybe, just maybe, He was refining you, strengthening you, and drawing you closer to Him in ways you never imagined. Pain is never comfortable, but it is often the tool God uses to shape His children. Think about gold. It must go through fire to be purified. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Likewise, God allows His people to experience trials, not to destroy them, but to refine them, to strip away the unnecessary, to strengthen their spirit, and to prepare them for something greater. The presence of a narcissist in your life was painful, no doubt. You may have felt belittled, manipulated, or unseen. You may have poured out love only to receive cruelty in return. But even in that, God was working. He saw every tear. He heard every prayer, and He was not absent in your suffering. The enemy might have tried to use that person to break you, but God was using that situation to build you. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. He could have looked at his situation and thought, why did God allow this? But years later, when he was lifted to a place of great purpose, he looked back and said, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. What the enemy meant for evil in your life, God is turning around for your good. Even now, God is working on your heart. He is using what you went through to teach you wisdom, to open your eyes, to strengthen your discernment, and to deepen your faith. You may not fully understand it yet, but there will come a day when you will look back and see the hand of God in every moment. The pain was never meant to define you. It was meant to shape you. It was never meant to break you. It was meant to prepare you. And my friend, you did not walk through it alone. The Lord was with you every step of the way, and He is leading you now to a new season, one of healing, restoration, and a greater purpose than you ever imagined. There are times in life when God places His children in difficult situations, not because He wants them to suffer, but because He wants them to shine. You may have found yourself in a relationship with a narcissist, someone who thrived on manipulation, control, and self-interest. It may have felt like you were surrounded by darkness, trapped in a place where love was one-sided, where your kindness was taken for granted, and where your worth was constantly questioned. But make no mistake, your presence there was not meaningless. God put you in that situation because you were His light in the midst of that darkness. Light is most powerful when it stands against the night. A small candle in a dark room can illuminate everything around it. Likewise, even in a toxic relationship, your goodness, your kindness, and your truth stood as a testament to the presence of God within you. Every moment you showed love when love was not returned. Every time you responded with patience instead of anger. Every time you spoke truth instead of falling into deception. You were reflecting the heart of God. You may not have realized it at the time, but your presence had an impact. The narcissist may have rejected it, resisted it, or even tried to extinguish it, but darkness can never truly overcome the light. Even if they never acknowledge it, they saw something different in you. They witness the love of God through you. And though they may never admit it, your presence planted a seed. Jesus himself walked among those who rejected him, misunderstood him, and sought to use him for their own gain. Yet he never ceased to shine. He never allowed the darkness of others to change the light within him, and neither did you. You may have felt drained, unappreciated, or even invisible at times, but you continued to be a reflection of God's love. That was no small thing. But here's what you need to remember. God never calls you to stay in darkness forever. He sends his light for a season, for a purpose, and then he calls his children forward into something greater. If he led you away from that relationship, it was not because you failed. It was because you completed your purpose there. You were not sent to change the narcissist. You were sent to shine. And now God is leading you into a place where you will be restored, where your light will shine even brighter, unburdened by the weight of manipulation and deceit. One day you will look back and realize that even in the most difficult moments, God was using you. You will see how your presence made a difference. And most of all, you will understand that your light was never dependent on anyone else. It came from God, and it will continue to shine wherever he leads you next. When you walked into the life of a narcissist, you may not have known the impact you would have. You may have questioned why God placed you there, why he allowed you to endure manipulation, selfishness, and emotional exhaustion. But nothing God does is without purpose. Even in that difficult place, he was using you. You were not just a victim of circumstance. You were a vessel of his love, his truth, and his grace. And whether or not you realize it, you planted a seed. Seeds are small and often unseen once they enter the soil. But beneath the surface, something begins to take root. In the same way, every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every time you extended grace instead of retaliation, you were planting something in the heart of the narcissist and in those around you. Even if they dismissed you, even if they ridiculed you, even if they never acknowledged the depth of your love, the seed was planted. A narcissist thrives in an environment where they can control others, where they can manipulate without resistance, where they can take without giving. But when you stepped into their life, you disrupted that pattern. Your compassion showed them a love that was different. Your willingness to forgive revealed a strength they could not understand. Your honesty, even when it was rejected, left an imprint they could not erase. They may not have admitted it, but they saw something in you that they could not replicate. Jesus often spoke in parables about planting seeds, about how some fall on rocky ground and others take time to grow. You may never see the fruit of the seed you planted. The narcissist may never acknowledge the love you gave, may never change, may never recognize the gift of your presence. But that does not mean your work was in vain. God does not call you to force transformation. He calls you to be faithful. Some seeds take years to grow. Some only sprout when life forces a person to look back and realize what they lost. And sometimes the seed was never meant to change the narcissist, but instead to influence someone else who was watching. Perhaps a child, a friend, or even someone you never expected. The love and truth you displayed did not disappear into nothingness. It remains, waiting for the right moment to take root and grow. And here is the most important part. God is not asking you to wait around to see the harvest. He is asking you to trust him with it. You did what he called you to do, and now he is calling you forward. Whether the narcissist ever changes or not is no longer your burden to carry. Your success is not measured by their transformation, but by your obedience to God's calling. You planted a seed, and now God will take care of the rest. Step forward in faith, knowing that nothing you did in love was ever wasted. Walking away from a narcissist is not failure, it is victory. It is not weakness, it is strength. It is not giving up, it is stepping into the freedom God intended for you. For too long you may have felt trapped, believing that if you just loved a little harder, if you just forgave a little more, if you just endured a little longer, things would change. But the truth is, God never intended for you to remain in a place where your heart, mind, and soul were constantly being drained. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is knowing when you walk away. God calls his children to be peacemakers, but he does not call them to be prisoners. You were never meant to live under the weight of manipulation, control, and emotional exhaustion. The enemy wants you to believe that leaving means you failed, that you should have done more, tried harder, or sacrificed more. But God sees the truth. He sees how much you gave, how much you fought to hold things together, how much you prayed for change, and now he is calling you to step into victory by letting go. Victory in walking away does not mean you never loved. It does not mean you did not try. It means you recognize that your worth is not dependent on someone else's validation. It means you chose to stop allowing someone to diminish the light God placed within you. It means you trusted God more than your fear of the unknown. And that, my friend, is a victory that hell itself cannot shake. Think of the Israelites trapped in Egypt under Pharaoh's control. They were slaves, crying out for deliverance, hoping for freedom. And when God led them out, it was not easy. The enemy chased them, fear tried to hold them back, and doubt whispered that maybe they should return. But God had something better for them, a promised land, a place where they could flourish. And just like them, your walk away from the narcissist is not just about leaving. It is about stepping towards something greater. You may still hear the voice of the narcissist in your mind, making you question your decision, making you wonder if you made a mistake. But remember this, God does not lead his children out of bondage just to send them back. He does not call you into freedom only to abandon you on the journey. He is with you, and he is guiding you toward healing, restoration, and joy beyond what you thought possible. One day you will look back and realize that walking away was one of the bravest things you ever did. You will see how God strengthened you, how he provided for you, how he filled the empty places with his love, and most of all, you will know that victory was never about changing the narcissist. It was about reclaiming yourself, stepping into God's plan, and choosing the abundant life he always had waiting for you. God's redemption for you is already unfolding, even if you cannot see it yet. He is the God who restores, who heals, who takes what was broken and makes it whole again. You may have walked through a season of pain, endured the wounds of manipulation, and given your heart to someone who did not cherish it. But your story does not end in suffering. God is not finished with you. What you lost will not compare to what he's bringing into your life. There were moments when you felt unseen, unheard, and unappreciated. You gave love only to be met with selfishness. You extended grace only to be taken advantage of. You hoped for change only to be disappointed again and again. But God saw it all. Not a single tear went unnoticed. Not a single prayer went unheard. And now he is lifting you out of that place, setting your feet on solid ground, and writing a new chapter in your life, one filled with his redemption, his peace, and his joy. Think of Job, a man who lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health. He endured suffering that seemed unbearable, but God did not leave him in his sorrow. In the end, Job received back double what was taken from him. That is the nature of God's redemption. He does not just return what was lost. He gives back more. He restores not only what was taken, but also what was broken within you. You may still carry wounds from your past, but God is already working to heal them. He is softening the scars, replacing bitterness with peace, replacing sorrow with joy. You do not have to carry shame, regret, or guilt. What happened to you does not define you. The narcissist does not define you. God defines you, and he calls you redeemed, loved, chosen, and victorious. One day, you will look back and see how God turned your pain into purpose. You will see that he never abandoned you, even in the darkest moments. You will see that every tear you cried was watering the seeds of a new beginning. And when that redemption fully unfolds, you will stand in awe of what God has done. So lift your head, walk forward in faith. Your story is not over, and the best is yet to come. God's redemption is not just a promise, it is already happening. And what he has planned for you is greater than anything you have left behind.